Bo and Luke Nation, welcome to the Bo and Luke Show. I'm your co-host, Luke Kerrigan. I'm sitting here with Bo Brabo, my other co-host, and Steve Morris. And I've been so excited to talk to you, Steve, because what you do, I've actually done for one of the businesses that I own. But Steve has had a really interesting career. So we had a cool start as an engineer and naval architect, designing multi-million-dollar yachts, and then building and coaching teams to help clients win the most demanding races on earth. During that time, he learned how to apply, business processes and implement systems, which is going to get to a point of this story and Steve's journey right now and what he's doing with something called EOS. And Steve, I can't wait to talk to you about this because I actually self-implemented EOS myself at a staffing firm that I own. And folks, if you're an entrepreneur, I cannot say enough good things about it. It is my number one recommended book that I tell other entrepreneurs they need to read. It's so important that I'll literally say, stop everything you're doing and read that book now, because it will give you an actual plan. So the best way I can put it is that you're working on the business and not in the business, because so many times people get consumed. So Steve, I've been really looking forward to this one. I hope I did that intro justice.
Yeah, no, well, thanks very much for having me, Bo and Luke. I appreciate it. I'm always really keen to talk about the things that I'm passionate about, bringing systems and processes to businesses. So let's have at it.
Let's start there. Do you have a story? So do you have a personal story in your own businesses where you implemented EOS and it made a gigantic difference? Just walk us through that, because I guarantee you that for our listeners, the problems they're having in their own business, no matter what it is, or just even getting started and, building processes in their life, they're probably having the same problems that you recognized and helped with.
Yeah, well, so I've come to EOS from my experience running a business. And, when we talked about the sailboat design stuff, and you can see these boats on the wall behind me here, the first part of my career, I was not only working as a designer, designing multi-million-dollar racing yachts here, but I was also rising to become a leader at the top yacht design company in the world. So we were growing that business. We were trying to figure out how we were going to get into new markets and to be able to really succeed in the yacht design world, which is difficult to do. It's kind of hard to grow a good yacht design practice.
Well, it's super niche, and there's no playbook for what you do. Like, if I want to start a car dealership, I can find somebody that's done that before and copy that, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's really about too, that the success of our business was related to the last design we did and how did that do in the race. And it was much more than, we had a piece of that, right? But then we would design the boat, somebody would build it, and then a crew would come along and sail it. And then you put on top of that the weather, right? So we were trying to grow a business with all of these sort of things that were essentially out of our control, if you like, on the outside, that were reflecting on our success.
Yeah, for sure. Before we get too far in, Steve and Luke both, so that our listeners know as well, what is EOS? Define that first.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the EOS is the Entrepreneurial Operating System. It really is just a complete system of a simple set of practical tools that help you get three things that we call vision, traction, and healthy in your business. So vision from the standpoint of really helping you and your leadership team get 100% on the same page about what your vision is and where you're going, how you're going to get there. And then traction from the standpoint of really becoming much more disciplined and accountable, like masters of execution, bringing that vision to reality. And then healthy from the standpoint of making sure that you as a leadership team are a healthy, functional, cohesive leadership team. I'm sure you guys have experienced in your career, but sometimes when you're sitting around that table there with people in the business, that sometimes
you don't have
conversations can go off track.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
It's amazing. It's a game changer. I'll tell you, like I said, we self-implemented it, and it is for listeners out there, you need to get in touch with somebody like Steve, because you read the book and then you go. There's no ambiguity. It is, hey, here's your plan. What are you doing? How are you going to get there? And this is how you're going to do it. And it's that simple.
Well, I love it because, my background, right? The engineering background, the project management background, I'm a systems guy, right? And anytime you see a problem in front of you, it's like, okay, how can we divide this problem up. How can we dissect it? And then how can we apply some framework that somebody else has used and proven out, with EOS in particular. It's been applied in 10,000 businesses here in the US and around the world. So it's a very successful thing. So, let's look at the problems in the business. Let's apply the system and let's get going. Let's get what you want from your business.
I think that's great. Luke and I are all about systems. We talk a lot about systems in general because, I've heard people talk, like if your calendar block or you've got these systems in place that makes you boring, it makes you like you get monotonous or it's mundane. And I think we talk about just the opposite. When you put the system in place, you actually have something, number one, that you planned for, and then you have something to execute against or lead within that system. And you can always tweak and adjust and make corrections where you need to make corrections, analyze, and you have analyze what it is that you have accomplished or not accomplished, and tweak your system. I think it's super important.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of that saying, isn't it? Something like, if you don't know where you're going, then you don't know where, when you're going to get there, or something like that.
Right.
I'm messing that up. But
yeah. Yeah.
We get the spirit of it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. That's great. If you don't know where you're going, then you don't know when you're going to get there. Yeah,
well, there's something about you don't know where you're going, then any road can get you there. And I don't know. I've missed that one this morning.
No, you're right on. I think that's perfect. It's the other thing you talked about earlier. When you fail to plan, then you actually plan on failing, right? So many teams get into that, and sometimes it can feel like, I think this is where, just from a leadership perspective, if everything becomes so urgent, you feel like everything is urgent in your world or in your company. You stop doing these types of things, and then you find yourself in a position, and you're trying to figure out why you're in that position. Why are you at this point in your company or on your team? Why do you have high turnover? Why are these things happening? And oftentimes I think you can look at the fact that you got out of this, if you ever had one, you got out of that rhythm, you got out of the system plan, and you got out of the processes and the so forth, and actually taking time to do them.
Yeah. Well, I think to get back to, where Luke was asking me the question before, I have this experience, like we'd sit down as a leadership team and try to say, okay, what are our goals for the year? Where are we trying to get to? Set these lofty goals, go execute the year. And then we get to the end and we'd be sitting around the table saying, well, we didn't quite get to where we wanted to go. And why was that? And at the time, what I see now is I didn't really have a good set of tools to be able to take that vision, those goals, the place we wanted to go, and to be able to bring it down into the business and get that traction that we're talking about, and to be able to execute. And that's what I love about EOS, and why I want to bring it to my business clients, is because I've seen, if you can have all the vision you want in the world, but if you're not going to be able to execute, you're just going to be sitting there at the end of the year saying, what happened?
Yeah.
But to have a system where what you're going to do in the next 90 days, what are your priorities? What are you going to do in the next month? What are you going to do in the next week? What are you going to do today?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
All of those things, you put them all together into a system, and then you can get to achieving your goals. And that's the magic.
It really is. Don't you think, Luke? It's like magic. It feels like it when it's taking, like when you've listened to someone and you've learned from someone like Steve and you've implemented these things, then when you see it actually taking place, it really does feel like it's that magical feeling, like, oh my gosh, this stuff is all falling into place. This stuff works, right?
Yes.
We're seeing progress along the way. That's
right. And people in business, even in sports, you have people with the proper systems in place. They're going to be successful no matter what they do. Look at Michael Jordan, for example. I think Michael Jordan could have been the best at football. I think, really, if you would have gotten more swings with the White Sox and the Birmingham Barons, he could have dominated baseball as well. It's because he has a system. He just didn't see enough at bats in order to do it. But I promise you, he could have done it because he has a system for his body and how he improves himself. Same thing in business. You look at entrepreneurs and you're like, well, look at people like Elon Musk, right? He's still working with PayPal. Now he's launching rockets. He's like trying to send people to Mars and things. He's successful in everything he does. It's not, to tie it back to the rockets, it's not rocket science. They just have a system in place. And the best part of this is you don't have to come up with a new system. You can just do the same old system everybody else does to be successful. And you don't need to be the Michael Jordan of anything. You could be in the top 40% of businesses and kill it.
Right. Well, and I sort of really, I mean, being a systems guy, right? I mean, this is something that I'm really passionate about, because what I see with a lot of clients that I work with is they're just so busy in the business. And particularly, over the last year, I mean, everybody's been, set onto the back foot, dealing with the pandemic and just being so busy. And what I'm seeing is people are sort of coming out of that, stressed out, because they've been running a marathon at sprint speed for the last year. And here we are, and they're seeing the opportunity in front of them, but because they've just been running so hard, they, really haven't been able to had the time to put the systems in place. And so, this is like the really great time now, is to say, okay, well, we're kind of coming out of this. The opportunities are there. How do we now take our, stressed, overworked workforce, get everybody a break, but create that space and that time to be able to take the opportunities? And that's where I'm like, that's what a system does, right? You put something in place so you can create the space to take the opportunities.
Well, you can't, without a system in place, you can't make the right decisions for your business. I learned that the hard way. What you do is you end up going with your gut. You think you're being effective and you think you're moving the business forward. I can promise you you're not, because if you're not effective with a portion of your time, you're not going to be, if you're playing catch up with the rest of your time at best. And at worst, you're driving the company into the ground and not doing any favors for your employees. Bo, you'll love this. I mean, it's simple stuff, the processes. They have something, I have my book right here, just going back to it, about getting the right people in the right seats. And they have something called the People Analyzer. And all you do is you just give them like plus, neutral, or minuses based on your company values. But here's the thing that's like so obvious that you'll love from the military and HR is you share this with your employees. And there's something that needs to be corrected. They know early and often that it needs to be corrected and we need to see change. And they also know what the consequences are going to be if they don't. So now terminations, don't just pop up out of the blue. They never do anyways. But I think leaders as a whole are very bad about sharing those critical conversations with employees, and that ends up hurting the business. They can, we can go on and on about the negatives that can come from that.
Yeah. Well, I see this with my clients. I mean, working with this concept of accountability, it's it's such a powerful concept, but people haven't seen it well modeled, right? And so, there's sort of like this reticence to engage in those difficult conversations. And the thing is, here once again, right, if you put a framework into place, like start, with just noticing, behaviors that are getting off track, noticing them early, having a casual conversation about it, going a little deeper, like trying to connect the dots. I saw you, missed an email on Monday and you went on point in a meeting on Wednesday, something going on. And, having that conversation, so you're on a path and not getting to the point where all of a sudden it's like, 3 strikes and you're out, and somebody's like, what do you mean? Where'd this come from? Right?
Yeah. I've always found that super, super intriguing myself, having a military background, because those types of things that we're talking about, they happen every day, all the time. It's just like ingrained in the leadership, development that you get within for me, it was the Army, and making sure that at the lowest level, those lowest level leaders are talking to the people they're leading. When it's like, see something, say something. If something's going wrong, then you correct it. And when you're correcting it on the spot, people develop and their skills just grow at an incredibly fast pace. And everybody's empowered to do that. People do that. You see it happening regularly. And it's just unbelievable. Then you get into the corporate world and you don't see that. Sometimes it's almost like taboo that you should share too much or give too much feedback to an employee. And my head's like going to explode, because I'm like, share the information, help them, develop them. Don't let it get to the point where you're so frustrated that you fire the person, and then they're wondering like, why did you never gave me any feedback? I have no idea what I was doing wrong or what I even needed to do. Maybe your expectations weren't even set correctly on the front end.
Right.
It's mind-blowing to me. I think
But what you just said, oh, sorry, what you just said is the norm. I feel
know.
like today.
I do too. I feel, I see, here's a good one. I see in discussion groups often where I see HR professionals talking about, oh my gosh, so-and-so just found out what the other person makes per hour. Is that legal for them to tell somebody what they make per hour? And now you've got this big drama case because somebody told somebody else what they make per hour. And I'm like, man, I lived for decades. Everybody, in the military, the government, your pay is all public, right?
Yeah.
And it's not, everybody knows what everybody makes. It's not a big deal. There's a small percentages of companies who publish that data. It's not a crime to publish the data. And I would look at somebody and say, why are you afraid to publish the data?
Yeah.
Right? Are you paying Steve and Luke differently? They're doing the same job. Why are you paying them differently? Right? What are you worried about?
It's so true.
It's so
true.
So it goes back to what I think the grand thing, what Steve's talking about is when you have systems, right? And you communicate them and you're transparent, and this is what we're going after. This is what we're trying to achieve. And everybody's involved, man, it's like success is just waiting for you to take it.
It is.
It's wild.
Yeah. Well, I think, and particularly one of the things that the components that I really love when you're talking about right people, right seats, we're doing this on the basis of your core values, right? So when I work with a leadership team, I'm helping everybody, right, get around the same page about like, who are we as a business? Like, what are those core values that are really important to us? And it's not just permission to play stuff like integrity and respect. I mean, like really getting down to who are we as a business, and to be able to define that, get everybody to see that and understand it. And then the next thing is we also talk about, the core focus, like, why are we in business? And, that's I love that discussion, because you just keep on digging down. Like, no, really, like, why are you in business?
Yeah.
Like, what's getting you up out of bed in the morning? Like, and it can't just be a paycheck, right? It's got to be something bigger than that. And, what's your aha, lofty reason for being in business? And when you start talking about these things and saying them and mentioning them over and over and over to the, the staff in the business, then people start like, aha, this is who we are. This is who we are as a business. And then that whole discussion about, like right people. So right people are people who fit your core values, right? And so you're being able to use your core values as a litmus test for hiring people, for reviewing people and saying like, this is where you're strong. This is where I see there's room for improvement. And then to be able to, find right seats. So right seats are people who are really great at their job. They've got the skills, the talent to be really good at the role that you're asking them to do. And we use a system there too. We call it GWC, which is gets it, wants it, has the capacity to do it. And somebody gets their job. I mean, that's like your God-given talent, right? I mean, you get the job. You want it. I mean, you're getting up out of bed in the morning, wanting the job. You can't, teach somebody to do that. That's got to come from inside. But the capacity to do it is the skills, the expertise, the experience, so that is trainable, right? That's something that people build through their career. So once again, like you're applying a system, which I love to be able to, look at this very sort of, people have found it difficult. Like, how do I rate employees? I mean, how do I, have that conversation? We have the annual review and it's like this big thing, right? That conversations and it's all transparent, and this is how we are looking at people. These are our core values. This is what we're looking for. So, being able to apply that system, I think is really great. It gets you that traction in the business.
It's absolutely right. And folks, entrepreneurs out there, spend money and focus on this. Like there's so much, what I've learned is entrepreneurs spend money on so much crap out there. Like you look at even marketing is not a sure thing. You can spend 50 grand a month on marketing if you want. You might get the ROI, you might not. I promise you, this is predictable ROI. You are going to come out ahead of it tenfold from what you did before. It transformed the small business that we had, absolutely transformed it overnight. It ignites new life into the entrepreneur and makes sure your employees are on the same page with everybody else. And it gives you, I would say, not only the direction of where you're going, but bite-sized pieces as to how to just break this off on a Monday morning and get after it and get that week done. You feel good about it. You look forward to Mondays. You feel accomplished on Fridays, and hopefully there's a big pile of revenue at the end of the rainbow, right?
Mm. Well, and that's one of the things. I'll make a plug for professional implementation, which is what I do. So it's a staged learning system that we come in. Everybody's busy as it is in the business, right? No one's sitting around saying, what am I going to do today? So we come in and we start introducing the tools, and we start off with traction first. So we start working with the business to get that discipline and accountability going. And then we start folding in, working on the vision and getting the North Star set from there. We don't overwhelm everybody all at once. We take it month by month by month, and slowly these systems get put into place. And then all of a sudden, now you can get like a rocket ship, right?
That's right.
And taking off. And the point of using somebody like myself is that, I'm an independent third party, right? So I'm just coming into the room, creating that space so that we can have the conversation. And sometimes, those conversations can get pretty deep, right? And a lot of emotion coming up around things like, what are our core values and how are things going in the business? And to have a third party, independent, facilitated, teaching and facilitating, just helping the group go through that process can allow the group to be able to just invest their time and sink into it and to really invest themselves in getting what they want from their business.
Yep. I think that is fantastic. And I think one of the, for people listening, one of the major benefits when you roll through some of this with someone like Steve coming into your organization and helping you through it, and then the outcome, you have these new systems in place, processes in place. What it also helps you do is now you have focus and you have energy around the systems that you're going to execute within or against. It also helps you identify what are real distractions and what are those things that aren't going to, that are really going to derail you, right? They're going to take you off of your system, outside of your process. And it's, in my opinion, in my experience, it's then easier to deflect and say, that has nothing to do, nothing to do with this business. It has nothing to do with why we're in business, right? It's not going to get us to our vision, right? So it's easier to say, nope, that's not part of it. And whatever that is, we need to put that away or discard it. It needs to go away. And you can stay right on track within your system. When you don't have the systems in place, it's easy to be influenced by distractions and say, oh yeah, that might help. And then you bring this in and like Luke said, oh, then that doesn't help, right? And then you're like, well, why didn't that help? Well, you don't even have anything to measure it against because you haven't taken the time to really figure out what your real vision is and what you're going to do and your core values and how you're going to get there. And you're just trying to, grab random pieces of a puzzle to put the puzzle together. And in the end, it doesn't work.
Well, it's a common part of what we talk about in the system. The visionary person in the business is sometimes the founder, has that grand vision, but they're at the 30,000 foot level, and they have 20 new ideas before breakfast every single morning because they're full of passion for the business. But the business needs to execute, and so that's where we work together as a leadership team to get that core focus and to really look at why are we in business and what is our niche, what are the things that we are really good at, and you define that, and then all agree as a leadership team, like, this is what we're doing, this is what we're executing on, for the next year, for the next 90 days, for the next month. And it helps just stay away, like stop all that shiny stuff from coming in, distracting the team. We're going here, now we're going there. I mean, if you just don't build up momentum if you're zigzagging around, chasing all of this stuff. So getting that
Right.
discipline, getting aligned, streamlined, balanced, and moving forward. Get what you want from your business.
And for the listeners out there, here's the here's the position I found myself in, and why I gravitated towards the EOS system in the first place, is I had a really honest conversation with myself. I said, Luke, why'd you get into business for yourself? Why'd you become an entrepreneur? My answer was, well, I wanted more freedom with my time, and I wanted more financial freedom, right? And then I asked myself, I said, well, Luke, how's that working out for you right now? And I was an absolute slave to the business. I was working in it and not on it. I had less time away or less time with my family. My finances weren't that free because at any time the risk, I mean, the ebbs and flows of the roller coaster of this, you didn't know if you're going to be receiving checks or writing checks. Yeah. So the very reason why I got into something, I was actually moving further away from it. And by implementing this, it just gave me the peace of mind that, all right, I know on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, I'm going to go in and this is what I'm going to do. And getting that process locked down gets you closer to that freedom and kind of gets you to stop digging into the hole, as they say,
Yeah. No, I mean, I love it. Like after a session I did recently, then my client was just saying like she feels so much more relaxed and focused, and just sort of like that feeling inside, like, oh, okay, we're going to get there, right? That it's not going to be this continual, having to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to keep the plate spinning in the air, because now she's got her team aligned with her. They've got an idea about where they're going, and we've got a system in place for getting there.
So like, Bo, here's a great analogy. When people lift weights, right, and they're going to get strong, they go in, let's say 5 days a week. They lift a different muscle group every day. They know what they're doing Monday. They know what they're doing Tuesday, right? How insane would it look if you were at the gym and you saw somebody come in, do a couple stretches, and then they frantically ran around to every single machine in the gym and just lifted it frantically for a few minutes and then ran to the next one every day? You'd be like, what in the world is that person doing? You're not going to get results that way. Yeah, we look at business and people do that all the time. We literally run from machine to machine, just frantically working on it with no plan in place.
Yeah.
Well, there's one saying that, sorry.
That's okay. No, I was saying that's crazy. He's right. It's good stuff.
So, Bo, I know you've got an Army background, but there's a Navy SEAL quote that I keep close to mind when I'm thinking about this, which is that you never rise to the level of the occasion, but you sink to the level of your training. But that's why we train hard.
Yeah.
That's a saying from the SEALs, and I just applying that to business. It's like you think, well, when times get hard, that we're gonna the team's gonna rise to the occasion, but it's no, you get stressed out and stuff starts getting difficult. So that's why we train, and we train hard, put a system in place and get all of this happening so that, we can get the coordination, the discipline, and the accountability and get your weekends back.
Isn't that something? It's amazing how that actually works. And no, it is. I love it. And if you don't put, even in our leadership program, we have the, train is the first word, train, test, execute. And if you don't train, if you don't spend time train, you don't work hard to train and have that as a constant part of the system that you put in place. I will be on my deathbed saying you will never achieve what it is that you're wanting to achieve if you don't have training in place, because you'll sink to your level of training. I agree completely.
And if there is no training, you're screwed.
Yeah, then you're really screwed.
Well, and it's to me like one of my big core values is to learn, right? I mean, to just keep on. There's so much knowledge and information out there, but to keep bringing it in, to sort of assimilate it, to figure out, where it can be applied. There's a lot of really smart people out in the world doing a lot of really great things that you can bring in and apply to your business. Of course, you don't want to be, starting some new system every single Monday morning, right? To have that discipline and accountability. But I still, I think if you're not continually looking at how can we get better? How can we get better? What can we put in place? Then, well, we say grow or die, right? I mean, that's one of the things that happens. Like you're either on the path up and you're learning and you're improving, or else you're not.
You're not. That's right.
You're not.
Absolutely. Good stuff. This has been fascinating, Luke.
It's amazing. I was so excited to have Steve come on here.
Yeah.
Steve, I feel like I've adequately sold why companies need to do EOS and contact you. So you need to tell them how to contact you and how to just directly transfer funds into your account so that you can go help them out.
I'll post my bank account number online.
That's perfect.
Yeah. No, so my company is Catylator, which is spelled Catylator, and that name came from combining catalyst and incubator. Catalyst creates a reaction, and an incubator helps that reaction come to life. Mm-hmm. And so I put those two things together. This is what I do for businesses. So my email address is steve@catylator.com. And you can find me on the web also at catylator.com as my website. I'm also on LinkedIn, Stephen A. Morris. So reach out. I'm always happy to have a conversation. I love talking to business owners about where they're going with their business. What are their dreams? And how can we bring those dreams to reality and get them to feel like really enthusiastic about, we're going to knock it out of the ballpark today.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Good stuff, Steve.
Great stuff.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Good stuff. Luke, any parting thoughts?
Just call Steve, get your business on track. That's my parting thought. Buy the book and then call Steve. It's called Traction. Just buy the book. It's going to be the most important book that you ever read. Get an implementer on board and run with it and make money.
Yeah. Well, I'll actually one up you there. If you actually give me a call, I'll send you a book. How about that?
So call Steve. There you go. There's no excuse.
Go.
Get your free book.
No excuse. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Bo and Luke Nation, for tuning in. We will see you next time. That's a wrap. Tune in for a new episode every Thursday. You can subscribe to our email newsletter for information on upcoming guests, giveaways, and more. Rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you to our sponsor, Sound United, for quality broadcast audio throughout Season 2.